So habits are how you close the gap between the life you're living and the life you're made for. In my own life, in the church, throughout history, I've seen consistently the same 5 habits present in the lives of those who are closing the gap between the lives they're living and the lives they're made for. And they're the same 5 habits that show up in this description we just read from the early church. The first habit is Bible, or engaging with the Bible. It says that they were committed to the apostles' teaching. At the time, this literally meant just sitting at the feet of the people who had spent the most time with Jesus and learning from them, people like Peter or Paul. But for us, we don't have them with us in the room, but we do have what they've written in our Bibles. And so that includes in there the apostles' teaching. And so one of the ways that we engage with that habit is by engaging with the Bible. The second habit is prayer. It says they were committed to prayer, which we find out in other places included things like fasting as well. They were interceding for each other. They were praising God. They were asking God for wisdom and for courage and all the things that they were facing, all of which was included within the habit of prayer. A third habit is generosity. It says they sold their possessions and property and distributed the proceeds to all as any had need. In other words, they were practicing generosity with one another. But this includes 2 kinds of generosity. Generosity with their money, but also generosity with their lives, which is why we're actually going to break the habit of generosity into 2 sub-habits, giving and serving. One is generosity with your money, and the other is generosity with your life. The fourth habit is community. It says they were committed to things like fellowship, meeting together, and breaking bread from house to house. All of that, I think, can fall under the heading of community. I think of community as a container habit. It's a habit that you can put all the other habits into, because every other habit you can do on your own or in community as well. And the 5th habit, the final habit for us, is the habit of mission. It says at the end of this section, every day the Lord added to their number daily those who are being saved. And the question is how? God did that through ordinary people who were committed to a habit of mission, who were committed to proclaiming and demonstrating the good news about Jesus. Bible, prayer, generosity, which includes giving and serving, community, and mission. We believe more than any other habits, these 5 habits have a disproportionate effect in accelerating your progress toward the life you're made for. And in the following units, what we're going to do is we're going to unpack each of these habits, and we're going to give you 3 different versions of each habit that you could start. A starter habit, a standard habit, and a stretch habit, with room to have your own specialized habit as well if you prefer. But I've found that over the years, often when you say, hey, just start a habit of prayer, people say, well, what does that mean? What could that look like? So we're going to give you some examples, but then leave room for you to customize it as well. And instead of waiting till the end of the course to start each habit, we encourage you to make a plan to start each habit as you learn about them, so that you're slowly building up to all 5 habits. And to help you with that, we've created a template for each habit that you can use to get them started. But I want you to know that I'm not just theorizing about these habits being effective. I'm not just thinking, I bet you these habits might work for people. When I was in my early 20s again, I felt stuck. And that's when a mentor of mine introduced me and a few friends to the power of habits in a small group that we were all a part of together. And as a result, I started doing some of these core habits. I started reading my Bible, and it was a really simple habit at first. I was just reading a chapter a day out of Proverbs. Instead of praying whenever I felt like it, I started to pray more systematically for about 15 minutes a day before I went to breakfast. And I usually followed a pretty simple framework to help guide my prayer time. As I began to have some regular income for the first time in my life, I started giving some of it away. Not much at first, but more over time. And I started using my gifts and my skills to serve other people. And I started to find a community of friends who were committed to practicing these new habits with me. And we helped each other along, reminding each other to do them, whatever it took to get them done. And not long after that, I ended up spending a summer in Japan working with a church plant there. And while I was there, God opened my heart to His mission. But when I came home, not only was my heart open to God's mission to the nations, my heart was open to God's mission right in my neighborhood with the people that God had placed me among. And so I still have a long way to go. And I don't always get these habits right. And especially as I'm trying to figure out what do these habits look like in my new season of parenting that I'm in. But starting those 5 habits changed my life as I began to close the gap between the life I was living and the life I'm made for. And I believe that the same can happen to you. Maybe like me in my early 20s, you feel stuck and you're ready to make some progress again. Or maybe you're at the beginning of your journey and you're really excited about your faith and you're wondering, okay, what do I do next? If that's you, I want to do just what my mentor did for me. I'm here to introduce you to the habits that will help you close the gap between the life you're living and the life you're made for. But before we think this is just about us, I want to let you know this isn't just about changing your life. In a study of how the early church grew so exponentially over the first few centuries, Alan Kreider concluded this: the sources rarely indicate that early Christians grew in number because they won arguments. Instead, they grew because, get this, their habitual behavior was distinctive and intriguing. If we get this right, we can see the Lord do the same in our own time. Here's what I believe. A church committed to a few core habits can transform an entire culture. It happened in the early church, it happened throughout history, and it can happen again if we want it. My prayer is that as you begin to put these into practice with maybe just yourself or with the people around you, that we begin to see the Lord add to our number daily those who are being saved.